The brand new heels on my feet crunched on the damp grass, each step a slow, deliberate beat in my mind. The morning mist of November chilled my back, but it was nothing compared to the cold slicing through my heart as I stood behind my mother-in-law's rose bush. My 9-year-old daughter, Lily, gripped my hand so tight it hurt, her round eyes wide with confusion. But nothing could compare to the pain tearing through my chest as I listened to the two people I trusted most in this world destroy everything I thought I knew about love and trust. She's just too weak, Mark, always living in the shadow of her own career, insecure, vulnerable. My mother-in-law, Eleanor's, voice was as sharp as broken glass. I know, Mom. It's why I had to be her patron. She needed someone to make her feel strong, to give her a purpose beyond her little yoga studio. My husband, Mark's, voice was casual, as if he were talking about the weather. But now I'm just so tired of pretending. The income from her studio is barely enough to cover her own expenses, let alone contribute to the life we want. The Female Entrepreneur of the Year award, it's a joke she takes far too seriously. 6 months earlier, I, Alara, 35, was living what I thought was a perfect life. I was a successful yoga teacher, a small business owner who believed she had been lucky to find a wonderful husband like Mark and a respectable family like his. The morning that would change everything started like any other Tuesday. I woke up in our cozy 4-bedroom house, the same house where I thought we'd grow old together. Mark was already up, dressed in his crisp business suit. He worked in finance, and he was good at it. Everyone in town respected him. He was the kind of man other men wanted to be friends with and women found attractive. I never quite understood what he saw in me. "Morning, beautiful," he said, kissing my forehead as I stumbled into the kitchen in my old bathrobe. "Coffee's ready." I smiled at him, my heart doing that little flutter it had done since our first date 15 years ago. Even after all this time, even through the hard times we'd faced, I still felt lucky to be married to Mark Peterson. "Morning Lily up yet?" I asked, pouring myself a cup of coffee and adding the almond milk Mark had left out for me. He always remembered little things like that, or so I thought. "Still sleeping. I'll get her up in a few minutes." Mark checked his watch. "I've got that big client meeting today, the Smith account. Might be late tonight." I nodded, used to his long hours. The finance world was unpredictable, especially in a city like ours. We'd learned to make the most of the time we had together. "Mom called yesterday," I said, stirring my coffee. "She wants us to come over for dinner this weekend." Mark's face changed for just a second. Something flickered in his eyes, but it was gone so fast I thought I imagined it. "Sure, sweetheart, whatever you want." Looking back now, I should have paid more attention to that moment, should have noticed how his voice sounded different when he agreed. But I was so busy being grateful that my husband and my mother-in-law got along so well that I missed all the warning signs. Lily bounded into the kitchen then, her brown hair sticking up in every direction. At 9, she was all arms and legs, growing so fast I could barely keep her in clothes that fit. "Slow down, buddy," I laughed. "Breakfast isn't going anywhere." Mark ruffled Lily's hair. "Listen to your mom, kiddo. She knows what she's talking about." The way he said it, so warm and loving, made my chest tight with emotion. This was my family. These two people were my whole world. Without them, I was nothing. Or at least that's what I believed. The next few weeks passed in a strange haze. On the surface, everything looked normal. Mark went to work. Lily went to school. I went to the yoga studio. We had dinner together most nights. But underneath, something had shifted. I found myself paying attention to things I'd never noticed before. The way Mark sometimes seemed distracted during conversations, how he'd started taking his phone with him everywhere, even to the bathroom, the fact that he'd changed his passcode and angled the screen away from me when he used it. Small things that could have innocent explanations, but they added up. I also started noticing things about my mother-in-law, how she always seemed to know details about Mark's work that I hadn't shared with her, how she'd ask about him first whenever I called, before asking about Lily or me. "How's Mark handling that big investment project?" But I hadn't told her about any big investment project. When I mentioned it to Mark, he just shrugged. She probably heard it at the country club. You know how people talk in our social circle. That was true, but it still felt strange. Then came the day that changed everything. It was a Thursday in late November. Lily had a half day at school because of teacher conferences, and I'd taken the afternoon off to spend time with her. "Can we visit Grandma Eleanor?" Lily asked, as we sat at the kitchen table sharing a sandwich. My mother-in-law had always insisted that Lily call her Grandma Eleanor instead of just Grandma. She said it sounded more dignified. I thought it sounded cold, but I never argued about it. "I don't know, sweetie. We should call first to make sure she's home." But when I tried calling my mother-in-law's house, the phone went straight to voicemail. Her cell phone did the same thing. "Maybe she's out shopping," Lily suggested. "We could drive by and see if her car is there." My mother-in-law lived about 20 minutes away in her sprawling estate, a place with a manicured garden she was proud of and neighbors she'd known for 30 years. "All right," I agreed, "but if she's not home, we'll just come back another day." The drive to my mother-in-law's house was peaceful. Lily chatted about school and her friends, and I half listened while enjoying the fall scenery. But when we turned onto her street, my blood ran cold. Mark's car was parked in my mother-in-law's driveway. I pulled over across the street, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. Lily looked up from her handheld game, confused. "Why did we stop? Isn't that Dad's car?" "Yeah," I managed to say. "It is." My mind raced through possible explanations. Maybe Mark was helping my mother-in-law with something around the house. Maybe her expensive sound system was broken or her AC needed repair. Maybe. "Are we going in?" Lily asked. "In a minute," I said. "I just want to figure out what's going on first." Something beep in my gut was screaming, "Danger." Every instinct I had was telling me not to go up to that door, not to knock, not to announce our presence. We walked quietly around to the back of the house. The living room window faced the backyard, and I knew from years of family gatherings that you could hear conversations inside pretty clearly from that spot. What I heard destroyed my world. "She's just too weak, Mark. Always living in the shadow of her own career, insecure, vulnerable." My mother-in-law, Eleanor's voice was as sharp as broken glass. "I know, Mom. It's why I had to be her patron. She needed someone to make her feel strong, to give her a purpose beyond her little yoga studio." My husband's voice was tired, frustrated, like he was talking about a burden he'd been carrying too long. "Her income from her AIDS-Fong father's death will be here soon, Mark. Then you'll have enough to finally launch your new venture. And then I can finally leave her and take it all." My husband, my beloved Mark, said. The world tilted. The inheritance from my father's death was supposed to be my financial security, the money I thought we had been saving for Lily's future. It was supposed to be our safety net. He had been using me this whole time. "What are you going to do about it?" my mother-in-law asked, and I could hear the excitement in her voice. "I'm going to file for divorce. The prenuptial agreement says her personal assets are hers, but I've been getting her to sign over everything else. She's so weak and trusting. She won't even fight me." They both laughed then, actually laughed about my pain, my weakness, my trusting nature. That's when something inside me died. The part of me that still believed in goodness, in love, in family. But from those ashes, something else was born, something cold and calculating, something that would make sure Mark and my mother-in-law learned exactly what happens when you underestimate a woman who has nothing left to lose. I pulled Lily away from the window and walked quietly to my car, my mind already spinning with plans. They thought I was weak. They thought I was broken. They were about to find out just how wrong they were. That night, I did something I hadn't done in years. I really looked at myself in the bathroom mirror. The woman staring back at me was 35 years old, but looked older, tired. Her brown hair was pulled back in the same simple ponytails she'd worn for the last decade. No makeup because Mark always said he liked me natural. Clothes that were practical and modest because anything else felt like asking for attention I didn't deserve. I looked exactly like what I was, A woman who had spent her entire adult life trying to be small, quiet, and grateful for whatever crumbs of love people threw her way. But behind my plain brown eyes, something new was burning, something that had been sleeping for too long. Mark came home around 11, same as always. He kissed my cheek, asked about my day, told me about his busy schedule tomorrow. The perfect husband act. That night, after Mark fell asleep, I got up to our home office. We kept all our financial records in a filing cabinet there, records that Mark handled completely because I was too emotional to deal with money matters. What I found was worse than I had imagined. The inheritance from my father's death, over $1.5 million, which was supposed to be our family's nest egg, was almost gone. $500,000 had been moved to an account I didn't recognize. Another $300,000 had been withdrawn in